Okay. Miracle occurred.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming together to immerse ourselves in this rich body of wisdom called Torah. We're going to read through this week's Torah portion in English translation, which is Parshat Shoftim in the book of Deuteronomy, starting in chapter 16 with verse 18. And after we've completed reading through the portion, we'll open it up for our collective conversation about it, and I'll share with you a painting that was evoked for me by the nature of what I was seeing in this week's portion. So if you, at this point you'd like to join me in saying a blessing, giving thanks for this moment, please feel free to do so. Baruch
Atah Adonai
Elohim
Eloheinu melech
melech
haolam
asher
asher
kishanu
kishanu mitzvah
mitzvanu la'asok
b'nei
b'divrei
Torah.
Torah. Amen.
Thank you, God, for the opportunity to immerse ourselves in words and deeds and relationship of Torah. I'll share with you the opening verses, and then I'll offer other people an opportunity to read as well. You shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribe, in all the settlements that Adonai your God is giving you, and they shall govern the people with due justice. You shall not judge unfairly. You shall show no partiality. You shall not take bribes, for bribes blind the eyes of the discerning and upset the plea of the just. Justice, justice shall you pursue. That you thrive and occupy the land that Adonai your God is giving you. You shall not set up a sacred post, any kind of pole beside the altar of Adonai your God that you may make, or erect a stone pillar, for such Adonai your God detests. You shall not sacrifice to Adonai your God an ox or a sheep that has any defect of a serious kind, for that it's abhorrent to Adonai your God. We're now at verse 2 of chapter 17. And Jim, would you like to read a little bit?
Thank you, Rabbi. If there is found among you in one of the settlements that Adonai your God is giving you, a man or woman who has affronted Adonai your God and transgressed his covenant, turning to the worship of other gods and bowing down to them, to the sun or the moon or any of the heavenly hosts, something I never commanded, and you have been informed or have learned of it, then you shall make a thorough inquiry. If it is true, the fact is established that abhorrent thing was perpetrated in Israel, you shall take the man or the woman who did that wicked thing out to the public place, and you shall stone them, man or woman, to death. A person shall be put to death only on the testimony of two or more witnesses. He must not be put to death on the testimony of a single witness. Let the hands of the witnesses be the first against him to put him to death, and the hands of the rest of the people thereafter. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst.
Jim, thank you so much. David and Susan, we're now at verse 8, if you'd like to read.
Go ahead if you'd like. We're
Okay.
not muted.
Thank you. Should the matter be beyond you to judge, between blood and blood, between case and case, and between injury and injury, affairs of grievances within your gates, you shall arise and go up to the place that the Lord your God chooses, and you shall come to the Levitical priests and to the judge who will be in those days, and you shall inquire, and they will tell you the matter of the judgment. You shall do according to the thing that they tell you from that place which the Lord chooses, and you shall keep to all that they instruct you, according to the teaching that they instruct you, and according to the judgment that they say to you, you shall do. You shall not swerve from the word that they tell you, right or left. And the man who acts willfully not to heed the priest, standing to minister there to the Lord your God or to the judge, that man shall die, and you shall root out the evil from Israel, and all the people shall listen and fear, and they shall no longer be willful.
When you'll come to the land that Hashem your God has given you, and you'll take possession of it and live in it, and you'll say, let me set over me a king, like all the nations that are around me. You shall set a king over you, for whom Hashem your God will choose. You shall set a king from among your brothers over you. You may not put a foreign man who's not your brother over you. Only he shall not get himself many horses, and he shall not bring the people back to Egypt in order to get many horses. And when Hashem has said to you, you shall not go back this way ever again. And he shall not get himself many wives, so his heart will not turn away. And he shall not get himself very much silver and gold. And it will be when he sits on his kingdom's throne that he shall write himself a copy of this instruction on a scroll from in front of the Levite priests. And it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, so that he will learn to fear Hashem his God, to observe all the words of this instruction and all these laws, and do them. So his heart will not be elevated above his brothers, and so he will not turn from the commandment right or left, and so he will extend days over his kingdom, he and his sons within Israel.
Thank you so much, Brother Robert. We're just starting chapter 18, if you'd like to read a bit.
Yes, thank you. The priests, the Levites, and all the tribe of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the offerings of the Lord made by fire and his inheritance. Therefore shall they have no inheritance among their brethren. The Lord is their inheritance, as he hath said unto them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, for them that offer a sacrifice, whether it be ox or sheep, and they shall give unto the priest the shoulder, and the two cheeks, and the maw. The first fruit also of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the first of the fleece of thy sheep shalt thou give him. For the Lord thy God hath chosen him out of all thy tribes to stand to minister in the name of the Lord, him and his sons forever. And if a Levite come from any of the gates out of all Israel, where he sojourned, and come with all the desire of his mind unto the place which the Lord shall choose, then he shall minister in the name of the Lord his God, as all his brethren the Levites do, which stand there before the Lord. They shall have like portions to eat beside that which cometh of the sale of his patrimony. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you any one that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God. For these nations which thou shalt possess hearkened unto observers of times and unto diviners, but as for thee, the Lord thy God hath not suffered thee to do so.
Thank you so much. Dave, we're now at verse 15, if you'd like to read.
Okay. The Lord your God, excuse me. The Lord your God will raise up.
Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee,
from amongst your own people, like myself, him you shall heed. This is just what you asked of the Lord your God on Horeb, on the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear the voice of the Lord my God any longer, or see this wondrous fire any more, lest I die. Whereupon the Lord said to me, they have done well in speaking thus. I will raise up a prophet for them from among my own people like yourself. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I command him. And if anyone fails to heed the words that he speaks in my name, I myself will call him to account. But any prophet who presumes to speak in my name an oracle that I did not command him to utter, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die. And should you ask yourselves, how can we know that the oracle was not spoken by the Lord? If the prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, and the oracle does not come true, that oracle is not spoken by the Lord. The prophet has uttered it presumptuously. Do not stand in dread of him.
Thank you, Dave. And let's see, Mark Levinson, you want to read a bit? We're at the start of chapter 19.
Thank you, Rabbi. And Adonai, your God, has cut down the nations whose land your God is assigning to you, and you have dispossessed them and settled in their towns and homes. You shall set aside 3 cities in the land that Adonai your God is giving to you to possess. You shall survey the distances and divide into 3 parts the territory of the country that Adonai your God has allotted to you, so that any manslayer may have a place to flee to. Now this is the case of the manslayer who may flee there and live, one who has killed another unwittingly, without having been his enemy in the past. For instance, a man who goes with his neighbor into a grove to cut wood. As his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, the axe head flies off the handle and strikes the other so that he dies. That man shall flee to one of these cities and live. Otherwise, when the distance is great, the blood avenger pursuing the manslayer in hot anger may overtake and kill him. Yet he did not incur the death penalty, since he had never been the other's enemy. That is why I command you, set aside 3 cities. And when Adonai your God enlarges your territory, as he swore to your fathers, and gives you all the land that he promised to give your fathers, if you faithfully observe all this instruction that I enjoin upon you today, to love Adonai your God, and to walk in his ways at all times, then you shall add 3 more towns to those 3. Thus blood of the innocent will not be shed, bringing blood guilt upon you in the land of Adonai your God is allotting to you.
Thank you so much. We're now at verse 11. Richard, would you like to read a little bit there?
Thank you. If, however, a man is his neighbor's enemy, lies in wait for him, and sets upon him and strikes him a fatal blow, and then flees to one of these towns, the elders of his town shall have him brought back from there, and shall hand him over to the blood avenger to be put to death. You must show him no pity, lest you will purge Israel of the blood of the innocent, and it will go well with you. You shall not move your neighbor's landmarks, set up previous generations, in the property that would be allotted to you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you to possess. A single witness may not validate against a person any guilt or blame for any offense that may be committed. A case can be valid only on the testimony of 2 witnesses or more. If a man appears against another to testify maliciously and gives false testimony against him, the 2 parties to the dispute shall appear before the Lord, before the priests or magistrates in authority at the time. and the magistrates shall make a thorough investigation. If the man who testifies is a false witness, if he has testified falsely against his fellow man, you shall do to him as he schemed to do to his fellow. Thus you will sweep out evil from your midst. Others will hear and be afraid, and such evil things will not again be done in your midst, nor must you show any pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot.
Thank you, Richard. And Linda, you raised a hand. Is everything okay? Oh,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
oh, okay. Well, would you
Sorry.
and Justin like to read a little bit? We're at the
Sure.
17 to 20.
Verse 20.
Verse 20.
Oh boy,
So-
you're right, Justin. And those who remain shall listen. And thank you, Rabbi.
We're
And
chap-
those
yeah,
who remained.
chapter 20, verse 1.
Oh, chapter 20, verse 1. Ah, gotcha. Thank you. When you go out to war against your enemies and you see horse and chariot, a people more numerous than you, darn it, you shall not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Go ahead, Bear. Sorry.
Okay. And it will be when you approach this battle that the Cohen shall come near and speak to the people. And he shall say to them, Shema Israel, right there, hear Israel, today you are approaching the battle against your enemies. Let your hearts not be faint. You shall not be afraid. You shall not be alarmed, and you shall not be terrified because of them. For the Lord, your God, the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. And the officers shall speak to the people, saying, What man is there who has built a new house and has not yet inaugurated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war and another man inaugurate it. And what man is there who has planted a vineyard and has not yet redeemed it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war and another man redeem it. And what man is there who is betrothed to a woman and has not yet taken her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war and another man take her. And the officers shall continue to speak to the people and say, What man is there who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, that he should not cause the heart of his brothers to melt as his heart. And it shall be that when the officials finish speaking to the people, they shall appoint officers of the legions at the edges of the people. When you approach a city to wage war against it, you shall propose peace to it. And it will be, if it responds to you with peace and it opens to you, then it will be that all the people found therein shall become tributary to you, and they will serve you. But if it does not make peace with you and wages war against you, you shall besiege it, and the Lord your God will deliver it into your hands. And you shall strike yourselves and all its males with the edge of the sword. However, the women and children and the livestock and all that is in the city shall be set free,
And all the spoils you shall take will be nothing, and you shall eat the spoils of yourself, which the Lord your God has given to you. Thus you shall do to all your own cities that are very far from you and near to you,
Okay.
which are not of the cities of these nations.
That's great.
Do you want to read more?
Thank you.
However, of these people's cities, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and you must give back to them, you shall not allow yourselves to live. Rather, you shall utterly destroy yourselves.
Stop it. Stop it.
You should destroy the Israelites,
Stop it.
the Hittites.
Justin lost his steer dog, and we're just really upset. And sorry, I
That's
thought we
just
could
another way of
contain it.
reading the same.
It's okay,
The
Jeff.
same thing.
So
Do you want to read
sorry.
more?
Sure, sure.
You shall utterly destroy
All right.
yourself.
So, the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that they should not teach you to act according to all their abominations that they have done for their gods,
Your
whereby
abominations that
you would sin against
declared
the
upon
Lord
them.
your God. Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, God bless you.
Thanks.
Margot, we're at verse 19, if you'd like to read a bit.
Yes, is that 21?
Yes, chapter 20, verse 19.
Thank you. If in the land that the Lord your God is assigning you to possess, someone.
Well, we're at chapter 20, verse 19. When in your war against the city.
Okay, I was reading it. Okay, when verse 19, when in your war, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sorry. I was ahead of myself. When in your war against the city, you have besieged it a long time in order to capture it, you must not destroy the trees, wielding the axe against them. You may eat of them, but you must not cut them down. Are the trees of the field human to withdraw before you to the besieged city? Only the trees that you know do not yield a food may be destroyed. You may cut them down for constructing sledge works against the city that is waging war on you until it has been destroyed. If the land that the Lord your God is assigning you to possess, someone slain is found lying in the open, the identity of the slayer not being known, um, uh, not being known, wait a minute, and the identity of the slayer not being known to your elders, and magistrates shall go out and measure the distance from the corpse to the town nearest nearest the corpse, and then shall then take a heifer which has never been worked, which has never pulled a yoke, that the elders of the town shall bring the heifer down to the ever flowing wadi, which is not tilled or sown. There in the wadi, they shall break the heifer's neck. The priests, sons of Levi, shall come forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to pronounce blessings in the name of the Lord, and every lawsuit and every lawsuit and in case of assault is subject to their rulings. Then all the elders of the town nearest the corpse shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the wadi, and they shall make this declaration: our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, O Lord, your people, Israel, whom you have redressed, and do not let guilt for the blood of the innocent remain among your people Israel. and they shall be absolved of the blood guilt. This you will, thus you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of the Lord.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That's our entire Torah portion for this week. It's Shoftim, which means judges. This is a portion that covers guidelines for leadership, the structure of how to govern a community, the roles of a king, of priests, of prophets. We have the construction or the injunction to construct cities of refuge, to provide some kind of sanctuary for people who have been accused of having killed someone. And we have warnings about not listening to false witnesses. And then we have some instructions about what to do in the waging of war. And then the final piece that Margaret was reading about was some kind of ritual to deal with an unsolved murder that occurs between towns. That's a lot of material, and I'm just curious what in particular may have caught your attention, things that, go ahead, Rose. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you, Rabbi. Well, I don't know if you went through this at the last session, which I missed, but just as an aside, when Moshe's words are all, when he said you, it's not you all, it's the singular, not the plural. You know, he's speaking to each individual Israelite, which is interesting. But what I found more interesting is a lot of what's touched on here is going from these ancient tribal customs and views of the universe to this more legalistic structure, especially like the concept of blood guilt, and that there has to be a balance that if somebody kills somebody else accidentally, there's still, if that person is known who killed the person, there still is that need to balance that person's death, because any person's death puts things out of balance. And the ancient way was that one of the relatives assigned to kill, whoever accidentally committed manslaughter. And that idea of balance is not negated. It's just, well, that view is still valid, but we're going to put in these cities of refuge so people can go hide. But there's an intrinsic obligation still on the kinsman to go and do them in. And then if you can't find who killed somebody, that imbalance still exists, so you have to kill the heifer. So, I mean, it's fascinating. It's not negating that very primordial sense of balance and justice and taking it into more legalistic things. The other thing is they're talking about having a king, but in First Samuel, when the people come to demand a king, Samuel's saying, speaking for Hashem, saying, what do you want a king for? So interesting.
Yeah. So first of all, the notion about balance that you brought up, fascinating. And then we note that in this portion is we have that remarkable verse, justice, pursue. So that to be, a kind of a prime directive, and it has something to do with this nature about balance. And then you also got me to think about you have these different tribes, and they're now traveling together, and now the project is to create out among all those different families and tribes and clans some kind of unified nation. And I don't know much about the history of all this, But I'm just wondering, did all these tribes have maybe slightly different ways and customs of dealing with situations? And now there's this grand project to cohere all that into some kind of uniform approach. Those are
Well, it's putting it in the hands of the priesthood, whereas before probably the headman of the tribe dispensed all the justice. But now you have professional judges, magistrates, you have priests. It's becoming professionalized. It's not just the headman of your village who's going to say who lives and who dies.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
create an
punished.
administrative system that is not just solely captured by the religious figures here. So that's interesting too. So let me call upon Robert. Go ahead, Robert.
Thank you so much again for a lovely evening. Well, I think both of you covered some of the content that came to my mind. To my mind, this is setting the foundation of Western civilization.
Ah,
You know, if we start looking at everything in here, for example, a just king, not acquiring too much wealth, not taking advantage of his position. I mean, my God, wouldn't we love to see this today? And I do mean that literally. My God, wouldn't we love to see this today? And then, for example, the idea of one witness. How many times have we seen a television show? I mean, I'm not a lawyer. Television show, you have one witness and then somebody's convicted. So the fact that it's on a television show means that it's viable in some people's minds to have simply one witness. Interestingly, in the Baha'i faith, you have to have two just witnesses as well. And in the Quran, you have to have two men. And ladies, here we go, two men, or if it's a woman, no, I'm sorry, one man, but if it's a woman, then you need two women. So, they didn't have equality, right? And of course, they were tribal, but we're past those days. But I'm just struck. We could go through this line by line. There is so much that is foundational for what we call today civilization. I don't know enough about Buddhism and Hinduism, but my understanding is they did not have this kind of structure. You mentioned administration. Rose mentioned, I think, some of the legal aspects and so forth. This is a turning point in human civilization. I'm always amazed at what Moses has accomplished. Always amazed and thankful for his suffering. Because imagine 40 years, people who want to go back to the calf because they were pagans. It took a while to be educated. Then they were ready. Then they could go. I mean, it's magnificent, really. If you look at it in the context of history, it's just magnificent.
thank you. Yeah, I'm going to actually come back when I share some of my reflections with everyone, back to some of the points that you're making about the foundations of what we call Western society here. I also just want to throw out something about the king. Both you and Rose, emphasize the presence here of the king, and what is fascinating to me is that the way it's set up is God hasn't decided there should be a king. That there's permission given by the voice that said, "Look, if you want to have a king, okay, you could do that." And then, as Rose pointed out, when we get into the book of when we get into Samuel, there's already the prophet is saying, that's not really what God is going to be happy with. The king's not going to work out so well for you. So there's a skepticism about the role of the king, which is different than what gets developed in Western society about the divine right of kings, because the power for having a king rests not with God, ultimately it rests with the people. And so, in fact, the early 20th century rabbi, Rav Kook, said, in the absence of a king, where does all that power that a king is supposed to have reside? It reverts back to the people. So, an interesting point. Okay, other thoughts or comments? So one of the things that I thought was interesting, what I saw was the development of some kind of governing structure. And in addition to specific rules what's fascinating are these different roles that's being set out. And in particular, the role of king, the role of priest, and the role of prophet. And they have different functions to play within this national group that's now being constructed out of the coherency of all these tribes. And they have a different function, a different set of responsibilities. They have a different perspective on the nature of power, if you will. And so the king is essentially the one who's levies taxes, raises an army, make sure that the order is maintained within the society. And then the priest, the role of the priest is to make sure that the connection to God through the system of these daily offerings is front and center in terms of the purpose and principle of communal life. And then we have the prophet, and the prophet has a very different approach. The prophet is not tied either to the rules of statecraft and the powers of statecraft and the formal authority given to the king. And the prophet's not tied either to these daily rituals that are repeated day after day after day in the sanctuary. The prophet develops this voice that is in effect channeling the pathos of God, the feelings, the profound feelings that God has in the face of suffering, in the face of vulnerability, in the face of transgressions, and gives voice to that degree of both pain, outrage, comfort. That's the role of the prophet. What fascinated me thinking about that is that while the priest is engaged in this kind of repetitive process day in and day out, and a process that's also tied to the this nature of seasons, this cyclical structure, which gives a certain sense of time, that kind of cyclical sense of time, that things just repeat, that the prophet is really speaking about time within history, which is a more of a linear, progressive sense of so it's a different responsibilities, different sense of time, different sense of relationship to formal authority. And so all of these roles are acting, if you will, not just in concert, they're acting sometimes in kind of tension with one another. And the importance that this scheme lays out for how important it is to keep these things distinct and separate. And we'll see later in Jewish history, when we come to the time of the Maccabees, one of the things that one of the Maccabee kings does is he unifies the role of high priest and king. And that's one of the reasons why the rabbis who come along 100 or so years later are very critical of the Maccabees, because they didn't maintain this important distinction between king, priest, and prophet. All right, yes, Deborah, go ahead.
Thank you. This is just simple thoughts that it's surprising to me, as the text makes clear, that the people are given a choice of having a king or not, rather than, and that God allows that, because one would think that there would be a natural propensity to begin to worship the king, and to begin to see their omnipotence, and for the king to begin to believe in his omnipotence, and to and be politically ambitious egotistical or narcissistic, and in that way, offer very poor leadership and somehow deter the people from their relationship, their primary relationship with God. So it's curious that God offers them the choice, unless it's meant to be part of their development, and an understanding of the boundaries, the limitations, and the it also then I think leads. It is a form of governing, an early form of governing, and obviously the model was, I believe, borrowed from, so to speak, or influenced by the other ancient Near Eastern peoples in their midst. But why do they need a king? And there seems something corrupt about that, and contradictory and curious. But why? Why were the kings necessary? The prophets, yes, I completely understand. And then just one other simple thing, which is, of course, tzedek tirdof, which is so potent and so powerful. Justice, you shall pursue. You shall literally run after, right? To me is it's prescient in these days, and it's a reminder of how remarkable it is that fundamentally the mitzvot, even this early time in the journey of the Bnei Israel, the underpinnings are ethical and moral behavior very early on in the ancient world, and that resonates with us, is to resonate with us throughout. But um, we're so lacking in justice these days, and is justice really just? It's it's a reminder of this foundation of Judaism, of Jewish life behavior, and how to move through life.
Yeah, so I want to pick up on that, and then if everyone will grant me just a minute, I just want to towards the end, I just want to focus back on Linda and Justin, but let me conclude our little discussion here, which is I want to suggest how radical this material that we're seeing here, because when we look at the role of the king in particular, that long before the Magna Carta in the 13th century, which placed some limitations on the absolute power of a king, what we see being presented here are all these restrictions on a king. And we read, a king shall not keep many horses, a king shall not have many wives, a king shall not amass silver and gold to excess. And above all, what a king shall do, a king shall write down this whole instruction we call Torah, and he shall read it every day. So there are all these restraints on the power of a king. And the primary injunction is that he is to immerse himself in a body of wisdom. So this notion about restraint and this notion about limitations, I think, is speaking both about the kind of system of governance that's being ideally manifested here in this portion. And as I noted in my email, later the Jewish spiritual tradition and ethical tradition will begin to identify these different roles of king, priest, and prophet as not just a civic system of governance, but also as revealing a blueprint for one's internal governance, self-governance. That these are different voices, the king, the priest, and the prophet, who are overseeing different functions within ourselves, and that they are all dynamically interacting with one another, placing some kind of restraint on the over dominance by any one of them. So this is a system both in terms of a civics and a psychology, if you will, that's trying to avoid the construction of any kind of a tyranny or any kind of a totalitarian approach or any kind of construction of an authoritarian regime, whether it be within one's own psychology or whether it be within one's civic and national life. So in terms of when I thought about that as a theme, I thought of this painting by Henri Matisse. So you have this painting called The Conversation, and in it you have Henri and his wife Amélie, and there they are, they're in a room, and the room is just consumed by this rich blue color. And of course, color for Matisse was always the driving subject of any painting, because he was seeking to heighten our emotional reaction and experience of the painting. But here, in terms of the figures that we've got on the left-hand side of the canvas, we have Henri Matisse, and he is this straight up and down vertical figure. His verticality is enhanced by the fact that he's wearing these pajamas with these vertical stripes. And then right outside the window is this image of the garden. And right there is this tree going straight up and down. And then facing him on the right-hand side of the canvas is his wife, Amélie. And she is, instead of being vertical, she has this round, curvy shape to her. And her roundness finds some kind of resonance in the garden outside, where we see these beds of flowers and the lawn in this kind of sweeping, curving shapes. And so you have these two figures who are in, I don't know what I want to call it opposition, but they're in some kind of dynamic relationship with one another. The verticality, the curviness, the standing, the sitting, and there they are, though, in this space, and they are in conversation. And some critics have said that the garden that's outside their window is supposed to represent the Garden of Eden, and that's the tree of life that's out there. And I thought, when I read that, I thought, well, if that's supposed to be representing the Garden of Eden, they're not there. They're not in the garden. They're outside the garden. And so, in effect, they're in some state of exile. So the question is, how are they handling their mutual exile? Are they blaming one another? Are they ignoring one another? It doesn't strike me that way. It strikes me that somehow this difference between the two of them, that's emphasized by their posture, by the colors that they're wearing, that somehow their differences become a source of strength between the two of them, that it becomes the medium through which they're engaged with one another. And the fact that he calls this a conversation indicates that they have found a way to utilize their differences. And so this notion about this dynamic tension or creative tension that happens when you engage in different points of view, different kinds of voices, which is what I was seeing in this week's portion. It took me to Montesquieu, who was this early 18th century French philosopher who wrote a book called The Spirit of the Laws. And the Spirit of the Laws of Montesquieu's work became very, very important to the founders of this country when it came to constructing a constitution. So here's what Montesquieu wrote in his book, The Spirit of the Laws. Liberty does not flourish because men have natural rights or because they revolt if their rulers push them too far. It flourishes because power is so distributed and so organized that whoever is tempted to abuse it finds legal restraints in his way. Montesquieu was the philosopher, the political philosopher, who really promotes this idea of the separation of powers and saying it's the separation of powers is designed to ensure that we don't have some kind of totalitarian regime, that we have a national life that isn't driven by extremism of any kind. His hope was that this kind of separation of powers would create a moderate society, a society that was required to make accommodations and compromises, and that no one perspective, no one center of power would be able to have dominance over all of them. And I want to suggest that what we're seeing here at this concluding portion, this portion, is both a system of governance that is trying to bring together these different tribes to create a system of government in which there would be these different points of view, these different contending centers of power, and that hopefully one would be able to constantly challenge the other to make sure that he was neither the king, nor the priest, nor the prophet, who had a complete total domination over them all. But there would be these, well, like I say, this creative tension among them. And that is also a model for how we need to live our own internal lives. That we have these different voices, the one who has a bold ego and just wants to dominate. And then we have other voices that are kind of grounded in more of a disruptive, creative approach to things, and another voice that is grounded in the daily routine of things. And these are all kind of working within us to try and help us have a balanced human being. So, and here we have, and the color blue is, for me, I don't know, you can share what you think about the color blue. Is the color blue kind of a cool, detached, emotional resonance for you? Or does the pool represent a space of like serenity and trust? I don't know. But in terms of serenity and trust, I do want to acknowledge that this community that we are together here, this community of Torah readers and interpreters, is here not just to discuss ideas. We're here to create a kind of empathetic coherency among us. And so I want to acknowledge, I know that Justin's dog died, and I know the kind of impact that the death of a loyal, sweet companion can have. And so I just want to acknowledge that I hope that Justin and Linda and all those within the ambit of their respective families and joint families able to appreciate the love that this sweet creature, I'm sure, Emmis, which makes me think of character of J.D. Salinger. I don't know if that's why up with the name, but this lovely creature, I'm sure, was nothing but wanted to be present in lives and wanted nothing but to bring reassurance and comfort and companionship. And so we grieve with you, Justin. And
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mm.
That's so kind. I had no idea I was going to be unglued like that as I started to speak. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to make a distraction. So thank you so much, Rabbi, for thinking of Esme, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. So the expression of emotions is never a distraction. It's only an enhancement of our time. So I'm so grateful that we can, share all these things, both ideas and words and experiences and emotions and colors and shapes and sounds. And I am richer for all of it. And I'm so grateful for all of your presence. And I look forward to our next gathering. God bless you all and be well. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Rabbi.
much.
Be well. Sorry for your dog.